Welcome to another Teen Storytime Women's History Month. I'm Melissa from the main library, and I'm going to be highlighting one of my favorite authors, Maggie Stiefvater. I'll also be highlighting her book, The Scorpio Races, a Prince Honor book, which is pretty amazing. I decided to highlight Maggie because she is a fun, interesting, smart, talented individual, and I kind of want to be her when I grow up, even though we're like practically the same age. But she plays music, she's done car racing, she has pygmy fainting goats, which is pretty adorable. She is a very talented artist and can play a myriad of instruments. She's just a really fascinating person, and I highly recommend checking out some of her work. So I chose The Scorpio Races because not only is it one of my favorites of her, but it is a book that I have read every year since it's come out. I read it in November, which has a special meaning, and I also chose it for this in particular because of Puck Connolly, or Kate Connolly. She is a fierce young woman on an island where they have this deadly race called the Scorpio Races every year in November, and she is the first girl to attempt to participate in it. And this book is told from the point of view of Puck, as well as Sean Kendrick, who is a multi-winner of the Scorpio Races, and it just kind of follows them along. And Puck is just a fierce, feisty young woman. She is brave and strong and clever and definitely sassy. And she's just a really interesting character, and she loves her family. And to keep them together, she decides to enter in the Scorpio Races and hopefully win the money for the prize. Prologue. 9 years earlier. Sean. It is the first day of November, and so today someone will die. Even under the brightest sun, the frigid autumn sea is all the colors of the night, dark blue and black and brown. I watch the ever-changing patterns in the sand as it's pummeled by countless hooves. They run the horses on the beach, a pale road between the black water and the chalk cliffs. It is never safe, but it's never so dangerous as today, race day. This time of year, I live and breathe the beach. My cheeks feel raw with the wind throwing sand against them. My thighs sting from the friction of the saddle. My arms ache from holding up 2,000 pounds of horse. I have forgotten what it is like to be warm and what a full night's sleep feels like, and what my name sounds like spoken instead of shouted across yards of sand. I am so alive. As I head down to the cliffs with my father, one of the race officials stops me. He says, "Sean Kendrick, you are 10 years old. You haven't discovered it yet, but there are more interesting ways to die than on this beach." My father doubles back and takes the official's upper arm as if the man were a restless horse. They share a brief exchange about age restrictions during the race. My father wins. "If your son is killed," the official says, "the only fault is yours." My father doesn't even answer him, just leads his Ishka stallion away. On the way down to the water, we're jostled and pushed by men and by horses. I slide beneath one horse as it rears up, its rider jerked at the end of the lead. Unharmed, I find myself facing the sea, surrounded on all sides by the Kapalishka, the water horses. They are every color of the pebbles on the beach: black, red, golden, white, ivory, gray, blue. Men hang the bridles with red tassels and daisies to lessen the danger of the dark November sea, but I wouldn't trust a handful of petals to save my life. Last year, a water horse trailing flowers and bells tore a man's arm half from his body. These are not ordinary horses. Drape them with charms, hide them from the sea, but today, on the beach, do not turn your back. Some of the horses have lathered. Froth drips down their lips and chests, looking like sea foam, hiding the teeth that will tear into men later. They are beautiful and deadly, loving us and hating us. My father sends me off to get his saddlecloth and armband from another set of officials. The color of the cloth is meant to allow the spectators far up on the cliffs to identify my father. But in his case, they won't need it. not with his stallion's brilliant red coat. "Ah, Kendrick," the officials say, which is both my father's name and mine. "It'll be the red cloth for him." As I return to my father, I am hailed by a rider. "Ho, Sean Kendrick!" He's diminutive and wiry, his face carved out of rock. "Fine day for it." I am honored to be greeted like an adult, like I belong here. We nod to each other before he turns back to his horse to finish saddling up. His small racing saddle is hand-tooled, and as he lifts the flap to give the girth a final tug, I see words burned into the leather. "Our dead drink the sea." My heart is jerking in my chest as I hand the cloth to my father. He seems unsettled as well, and I wish I was riding, not him. Myself, I am sure of. The red Ishka stallion is restless and snorting, ears pricked, eager. He is very hot today. He will be fast and difficult to hold. My father gives me the reins so that he can saddle the water horse with the red cloth. I lick my teeth, they taste like salt, and watch my father tie the matching armband around his upper arm. Every year I have watched him, and every year he has tied it with a steady hand, but not this year. His fingers are clumsy, and I know he is afraid of the red stallion. I have ridden him, this Capel. On his back, the wind beating me, the ground jarring me, the sea spraying our legs, we never tire. I lean close to the stallion's ear and trace a counterclockwise circle above his eye as I whisper into his soft ear. "Sean!" My father snaps, and the Capel's head jerks up quickly enough that his skull nearly strikes mine. "What are you doing with your face next to his today? Does he not look hungry to you? Do you think you'd look fine with half a face?" But I just look at the stallion's square pupil, and he looks back, his head turned slightly away from me. I hope he's remembering what I told him. Do not eat my father. My father makes a noise in his throat and says, "I think you should go up now. Come here," and he slaps my shoulder before mounting up. He is small and dark on the back of the red stallion. Already his hands work ceaselessly on the reins to keep the horse in place. The motion twists the bit in the horse's mouth. I watch his head rocking to and fro. It's not how I would have done it, but I'm not up there. I want to tell my father to mind how the stallion spooks to the right, how I think he sees better out of his left eye, but instead I say, "See you when it's over." We nod to each other like strangers, the goodbye unpracticed and uncomfortable. I am watching the race from the cliffs when a gray Ishka horse seizes my father by his arm and then his chest. For one moment, the waves do not attack the shore and the gulls above us do not flap and the gritty air in my lungs doesn't escape. Then the gray water horse tears my father from his uneasy place on the back of the red stallion. The gray cannot keep its ragged grip on my father's chest, and so my father falls to the sand, already ruined before the hooves get to him. He was in second place, so it takes a long minute before the rest of the horses have passed over the top of his body and I can see it again. By then, he is a long, black and scarlet smear, half submerged in the frothy tide. The red stallion circles, halfway to a hungry creature of the sea, but he does as I asked. He does not eat the thing that was my father. Instead, the stallion climbs back into the water. Nothing is as red as the sea that day. I don't often think on my father's body strung out through the reddening surf. Instead, I remember him as he was before the race, afraid. I won't make the same mistake. So, starts off with a bang, doesn't it? That's the prologue of the Scorpio Races, and now I'm going to read just a little snippet of chapter 1, which is told from Puck's point of view. She's kind of looking back, and it will give you a nice glimpse of what you can look forward to in her character. All right, so chapter 1, Puck. People say my brothers would be lost without me, but really, I'd be lost without them. Usually, if you ask someone on the island where they come from, they say something like, "Round about Scarmouth," or "Backside of Thisbe," "The hard side," or "Stone's throw from Tala." But not me. I remember being small, clutching my father's lined hand, and some wind-beaten old farmer who looked like he'd been dug out of the sod asking, "Where you from, girl?" I answered, in a voice too loud for my tiny freckled self, "The Connolly house." He said, "What's that now?" And I replied back, "Where we Connollys live, because I'm one." And then I am still a bit embarrassed about this part of it, as it speaks to a black part of my character. I added, "And you're not." And that's it. I hope that these little snippets of the Scorpio Races have intrigued you enough to possibly check it out or check something else up on Maggie Stiefvater. I hope that you remember to be strong and fierce like Puck and Maggie. Thanks. Bye.